My name is Michele Di Paola. I live in Italy, close to Milan, and I've been a youth worker since last century with an organization called Spazio Giovani. In this organization, actually, I had the first chance to do some first experiment using digital elements in youth work back in the early 2000s, more or less, because this is my background since I was a kid. I mean, I was one of these geeky, nerdy kids playing with computers and doing video games where it wasn't, not even fashionable, it wasn't a thing at all. I'm talking like half 80s, so you can understand how old I am. Bringing together these passions of mine, like doing youth work and being involved in educational processes which are more like on the non-formal side, more engaging, more interactive from one part, and on the other side, bringing in my big passion with everything technological is what is motivating me also to do freelance activity as a trainer, as a consultant. Now exploring also this part of the field, especially exploring the use of video games and educational purposes, this kind of stuff. In the panels, I think we covered a lot of very interesting topics. Some of them probably not really so much covered before, at least in the field of youth work, like for instance, discussing the sustainability of digital activities, which was something really enlightening and kind of surprising for me as well. But in general, what surprised me in this whole process is that even if maybe there are different experiences and different backgrounds in our participants, so some of them are already quite much into doing some very interesting activities using digital stuff. Others are really on the verge of starting exploring these things. All of them were very engaged and willing to try to share, to dive into the thing with no fear and with especially no fear of doing anything wrong, which I think it's one of the main problems, that we face when we deal with youth work, non-formal education and technology overall. People are often worried about, doing something wrong and breaking something or ruining something, or they feel they do not know enough about some technical gizmo or everything, and then they don't do stuff just because they don't feel confident. From some aspect, a confirmation on the other side, also nice surprise that this group really was never fearing of doing anything wrong. They just jumped into it. So I'm happy to see it. If I have to think, for instance, the panel discussions we had, as I was mentioning, I found very interesting to work on the topic of sustainability of digital activities. This is something which is not really often covered by not only these kind of training courses, but in general as a discussion topic. It's also very dear to me, the topic of digital rights, which was covered in one of our panels and training courses in the online part. And I think it's very relevant and more relevant, including the part of discussion that we had regarding, for instance, all the transformation that AI is bringing, not only to the educational field, to the youth world field, but in general to our society. We are just really at the beginning of what could happen, and already a lot of very interesting and very big discussion started regarding this topic. So these three things would be probably the ones which were more interesting to deal with and to engage people on, or the topic and the different angles that we try to approach the digital transformation of youth work were, I think, very interesting and very relevant. I think that was a complete package which probably, I don't think it was ever delivered with such richness of different topics and angles so far. The first one was for sure that you have to dare. We started using platforms and approaches which we knew they would work, because that's a safety measure in the beginning, and then we started to be more confident with ourselves, with the team, with the group, and started to dare using other stuff, other platform, other approaches. That paid off a lot. I mean, the engagement was better and the results were better. So yeah, daring, going a bit further than what you normally would do. It's always a good thing, and this training course proved to me just once more. Another lesson could be that it's not that much about, let's say, technicalities. When we discuss in the youth work field about digital youth work or the digital transformation of youth work, or whatever you want to call it, many people start asking you, so which are the platforms, which are the tools, which are the devices? And I think that, again, another lesson which this training course kind of confirmed in my belief is that these things all came and all should come later. They all should come later, and the main concern should be why you do such a thing, and the approach you want to use dealing with a topic, and the angle you want to choose. So it's education. It's still dealing with education, and education is still about the why and the how, and the technical aspect of it just comes later. So I think we managed to dive deep into this why and how part, and I'm satisfied a lot of that, and it's another lesson that I want to keep with me. And the third one, I think, is the diversity of possible angles that you can approach the digital transformation from. So we discussed it from the rights point of view, and then sustainability, and then inclusion, and then innovation, and then so many possible layers, so many possible ways to frame a topic which is sometimes very simplistically treated as, let's use some platform to meet online and do stuff. But instead, there's a lot more to it, and that's another big lesson that I think this training course taught to me and to the group. Our participants were and are youth workers, so young people are present in this conversation that we're having with them, just as they're in our target group, but they're not directly involved in the training course. Anyway, of course, we have a lot of experiences that we were sharing during the whole process. And of course, digital transformation is something which is happening. We can discuss a lot about whether we like it or we don't like it, or we would prefer it to happen in a different way, but this is what's happening. So it's kind of pointless to start blaming or anyway discussing if we shouldn't maybe stop this and do somewhere else. Young people are living into this thing from the beginning. This doesn't mean that as someone think that they are like experienced or they are like smarter or more able or more capable to deal with these topics. Since because they were there from the beginning, they learn more. It's not true. If I would answer in a short sentence to this question, I think that the answer would be young people are facing one of the biggest transformations in human history, and these last generations are born into it, so they don't even realize that they are into this changing process because they have no idea of how things were before. But this doesn't mean anyway that they are more able than we are to understand what's happened or to shape things in a way that it's more suitable for them, for us all. So they're full of questions, and they have skills, and we have maybe less skills but maybe more questions. And I think that two things should really work together, and the more we can make them work together, the more I think the process will end up in a good way for both of us. From one side, I think digital spaces are promoting and improving inclusion. On the other side, there is another kind of inclusion that we should always consider, So the fact that if you, for any reason, do not have access, if you don't have the right devices, if you don't have the way to be there, then you more and more you simply do not exist. So digital divide or digital inclusion is becoming definitely a thing to worry about, and it has a very wide also impact in many different aspects. So inclusion can be improved technically, but should always be kept in mind as a starting point when you shape activities. So if you work with a target group and you know that they can't use some kind of platform, some kind of device, because for many reasons, I don't know, they cannot even simply afford it, then you, as youth worker, as designer of the experience, you have the duty to find something else. And this is how inclusion should work on our side, like youth workers, educators. Not to be afraid. As I was saying, I still sense a lot of people afraid of approaching these topics because they fear they have not enough skills, they feel they will break something, or they fear that young people will know more than they do, which may be, and then that's perfect because you can involve them and give them the key and let them drive for a while, which is something we all love to say and to brag about. We're empowering young people to drive their own learning processes. Then let's do for real this time. It can be done. Yeah, and of course the big advice is to don't be afraid to fail. We fail together. In the innovation world, there is this saying, "File harder." So file harder could be an interesting advice. Don't be afraid to do things just for the sake of seeing if they work. And then if you understand that they do not work, then you can do things differently. And if you understand that they work, then it's a good starting point and you can build on top and try other activities and try other possible directions. So don't be afraid. That's that's the advice. I do not know if there were similar experiences to this one so far. Quite a long time of different exploration, some of them in presence, some of them online, covering a lot of different aspects and angles of digital transformation. Probably then my final thought would be that we need this kind of experiences to be offered to a lot more people. We have a group here, and of course they will be multiplicating what they learned in their local context, but I'm still afraid it's always like a little drop in the ocean, and the ocean is very big, so probably we need to pour more drops like this everywhere to share more knowledge and to show that there's nothing to be afraid of. It's just a matter of trying, using your creativity, and still keeping in mind that it's still education that we're doing. So it's not about the platform and the technicalities, or I can code, or I can do this and I can do that. It's why we do that, which are the values we are offering to young people, which are the elements that these activities can bring them as a learning. So this would be the thing I would love to underline.